Today we're going to be going over our top 5 picks of ball pythons from the Schaumburg NARBC show of 2025. If you don't remember, this list is obviously just for fun. The only rules that I do is that I do not want to pick more than one of the same animal from the same breeder. There might be some animals that repeat themselves within our honorable mention section, which will come right before our first pick. So without waiting any further, let's go ahead and get started. At number 5 from Straight Fire Reptiles would be this Hurricane Desert Ghost Clown. DG clowns are always beautiful and clean and crisp, but when you add Hurricane on top of that, you get an insane amount of pattern being brought back into it, as well as that famous Hurricane eye stripe. As you can see here, you have the eye stripes maybe a little thicker than normal, obviously, but then becoming completely warped, wavy, and thick after you get to the head, and quite frankly, it usually wraps around and goes around the head, almost like it's a pair of eyeglasses that have warped or something like that. But what's so beautiful about this specific one is that cleanliness matched in with the cool Hurricane. Hurricane is incredible. It's something that I have wanted to add into my collection for quite some time. When I can find the right fit, I almost pulled the trigger on one at the Schaumburg show here. And in fact, I'll show you that one here a little bit later. But you can't deny the beauty here, especially when paired with Desert Ghost. Obviously, Desert Ghost is a gene that cleans things up, brightens the animal up. So it really just brings a wonderful contrast to this animal. You get the nice creamy colors of the Desert Ghost coming in there, just keeping everything nice, clean, and crisp so that you can really appreciate the beauty that the Hurricane does to this entire animal, not just to the head, but I find it does add a lot of patterning and kind of just keeps the animal a little bit more bright as well. It's an absolutely beautiful animal, and you can only think where you could possibly go from there. There's so much that you can do with DG clowns that people still haven't really gotten started on yet. There are a lot of beautiful things. Obviously, the Desert Clown was the first step, but there's so much more that people can do with this, adding into other genes, and I can't wait to see it. At number 4 from Wide River Reptiles would be this wonderful blackhead gray matter. Gray matter is the combination of super cinnamon and champagne. Adding on blackhead into this is a really cool addition because you get a lot of what I love from the Suma pied. On top of that, this is not listed as a pied, and champagne is known to bring a lot of that pied peaking in, especially when combined with some other genes. And well, gray matter is probably one of the best examples of this. Many people would see this and think that it has pied in it. It doesn't even have a single copy of pied. But what I really love about the addition of blackhead here is that it has created this Suma pied type look to it. And seeing it right here is a perfect example of that. Look at the head and the first part of the body. It is very much a lighter gray, but as you get down towards the back of it, it then suddenly morphs into a darker gunmetal gray with some straight blacks and even some sheen to it right there, which would give a slight iridescence look even in a way along the back of the tail there. I really love the Suma pied, and the main reason I love the Suma pied is because of the chaotic variety of colors that are splashing into it. Well, this is kind of the same, only more on a gray scale, messing with grays and blacks other than dark browns, mahogany browns, and black. It's a really awesome animal and a twist on what you can normally get out of these beautiful animals. There are so many cool things that you can create, and it's just so amazing to realize that there's no copy of pied in this. It's a very incredible, beautiful animal, and it really just goes to show you why blackhead can really bring that extra oomph to just about anything it touches. Blackhead itself is a beautiful problem-free morph that just enhances everything that it's in, whether it is a dark base that you're going for or a even light morph. Some of the most bright snakes that I've ever seen have blackhead to it because blackhead plays nice with everything, much like this beautiful animal right here. At number 3 from ERS Reptiles would be this Pastel Leopard Pinstripe Highway that has a little bit of funkiness going on with it. It certainly is amazing. You can tell it's a very yellow belly, complex animal. When I first looked down on this animal, it kind of gave me the vibes of a blood python type patterning at least, and even some of the shading. This is obviously a very much more light animal just because of the presence of the genes that are in it, but just the granulation, the patterning, everything about it was just so funky and weird that it just really gave me that kind of blood python-y type look just in terms of that pattern. Obviously the coloring, it's much lighter than the ones I'm thinking of, but it is still incredibly unique, and a reason I wanted to show it is because it shows you what you can do with quality of animals. There is a reason why some pastels are very nice and clean and others can be a little bit more dirty, and that is because the quality of genes. Almost every other snake out there that is kept have certain polygenic traits. But for probably the reason of so many morphs, ball pythons, we do not do that. When we look at a pastel like this one here, we just say it's a pastel, but there is a very big difference between that pastel and many others that you might see. This one even has a little bit of size to it. But my point is, back to this one, is that you have an extraordinary thing going on here. It is an absolutely extraordinary animal, and there might be a little extra that's going on, but it is absolutely beautiful. I would actually love to see this animal a little bit darkened up even maybe in the future, just to see what else you can get with it. But I really wanted to include this animal because of how beautiful it is, and it just goes to show you that it's not just about the genetics, it is about the quality. And there is, I think, a shift coming where quality is going to be more of the concern than just the genetics in it. At number 2 from Rice Reptiles, well, I actually have a tie. Starting off with this Cypress Enchi Yellow Belly Lace Clown. This is absolutely beautiful. Enchi and Yellow Belly always work well together to create a very nice, beautiful, bright animal. But when you get Cypress in there, Cypress really brings these just absolutely crisp, orangey type colors, and Lace just serves to brighten everything up. Lace is absolutely incredible, and by itself, it can be very, very subtle. It has this sort of popcorny type feature near the belly where it kind of brings up some whites, but in essence, it just serves to enhance and brighten the colors up. And I already said that Enchi and Yellow Belly pair together very, very nice to create a very nice, bright animal. Well, Cypress, I already mentioned what that does in bringing in all these nice, beautiful, exotic type colors. But Lace just comes along and dials that up to 10. On top of the fact that you have the pattern changes coming in mostly from Enchi and from Cypress there, all on the beautiful palette that we all know and love as Clown. You get some of the more intense oranges that you've ever seen here. It's not just a bright orange. It's very easy to look at this animal. I've used the word bright, I've used the word clean quite a bit, but look at those oranges. They have a tangerine type tinge to them, and that, I think, is the Cypress being amplified also by that Lace. They have that sort of tangerine type color, which has some hints of that darkness just lurking underneath, and that is why it's so beautiful when something can kind of trick you. It is a bright animal, but look a little closer. You see the accents of the blacks around it, just subtle enough to call everything out, and within that orange, you start to realize that it is a little bit more of a darker, bolder orange. Another thing I always love about these animals are their sides. The whites that flame up from the belly that very quickly just morphs into the color that it is, and in this case it's obviously that beautiful tangerine type orange, but it doesn't affect the patterning, giving even more beautiful contrast within the sides of the animal. It is absolutely incredible. When you're at a show, I very much urge you, don't just look down on the animal, kind of get down on its level and look at that. You really start to gain an appreciation for it when you get down on its level and say, wow, this is even better than what I thought. And within the pattern itself, obviously, you get this nice, crisp, bright splash of lemony yellow. And for our second snake, at number 2, would be this very probable red striped Cypress Spot Nose Yellow Belly Clown. And when you put them side by side, you get the idea, at least I do, when I look at this snake, that it's a little bit more of a dark snake. And it certainly is, because it has those types of colors coming in. But there are certainly bright things about this. That orange seems to have turned into almost a flame. On the sides, you also can see that the granulation is coming in with this backsplash of lighter orange tinginess. And in the front of the snake, that lighter orange goes pretty much all the way up to the dorsal stripe. But as you can see, as you get back closer to the mid of the snake, that starts to become that lighter orange, and that lighter orange starts to get these black little flecks within it, and then that orange kind of transforms into a darker orange, giving the presence of a campfire in many ways behind this animal. The lighter color of the flame, and then just as it goes up closer towards the dorsal of the snake, it becomes more of that candle top flame type look. And it's contrasted so well because of the fact that you have these nice, beautiful, crisp, creamy yellows. They kind of give the impression of yellow, but they're really closer to almost a cream color, in my opinion. I think the contrast to it just lends itself to make you see it. At least that's what I'm seeing, is more of a creamy type color rather than a yellow, which is very, very nice. And then throughout that dorsal stripe comes this lavender just sneaking in seemingly throughout it, just kind of splashing itself in where it needs to be, and near the tail it just becomes very, very bold, as you can see. Two very gorgeous animals, and Rice Reptiles can almost always be counted on to bring absolute smoke shows to these expos. Before we get to number 1, I do want to show a lot of honorable mentions. There's a lot of great animals at these shows. For our first from Batter Up Reptiles would be this Rainbow Pinstripe Enchi. Rainbow is of the mainline albinos. That would be, of course, normal albino, candy, lavender albino. Of these, it is arguably the most vibrant one. It is also the very rarest of those morphs. Rainbow has not been fully worked into quite a few things. I don't know why. It is absolutely extraordinary, and like I said, I think that the contrasts and colors that it brings are very different. And I know sometimes people will say that they think it might be because it's too similar to something else, but to that I would easily just point out the Dreamsicle. The albino pieds had been made and they were very beautiful, and they still are, but when the Dreamsicle got made, they just exploded. Could this be because marketing, calling it a Dreamsicle? Maybe, but they still are incredibly popular to this day. They're still worked into many different things. They are the base of many different people's collections. So to that I say that there's definitely room for a lot of these beautiful morphs like Rainbow, as you can see here. But this animal is definitely very, very gorgeous, and you can see the brightness of it. The eyes honestly give more of an orangey look to me in many cases. Something very, very unique to just this morph. So a very beautiful animal, something that I'd like to definitely see more of. Next up from Genetic Genesis would be this Banana Black Pastel Wookiee Het Clown, possible yellow belly. I love banana and black pastel together. It's absolutely amazing, but when you get Wookiee in there too, wow, it's just so cool. And I love the reduced patterns because it really gives this almost purpley type look. It's very purpley. It's a lavender type base, but the golden lettering, the golden patterning throughout the entire animal just really stands out. It contrasts so well. It very much gives the look of gold. At least that's what I'm seeing here. Almost shimmery and shiny. And what's so cool about contrast, I often love and gush over contrast, but what it is capable of doing is tricking you. It's tricking you into believing something, and seeing is believing, as they say. Like I said, I think that this contrast just lends it to make it look like some sort of golden symbols just imprinted on this animal, especially with how reduced it is. It just kind of really calls attention to each one of them. You can see one here as well with just a few different genetics in there. In fact, all you're doing is switching out Red Stripe for Wookiee, and then that kind of brings that pattern back in a little bit more, but it does lose a little bit of the darkness, I feel, so you can kind of see them side by side here, and you can see the more the pattern, the gold type coloring. It's still very, very similar animals, just one seems to stand out a little bit more with that purpley type background. Very similar animals, and both very beautiful animals, but you can see on the reduced one, at least it gives the impression that it is a little bit more purpley. And when you look at animals like this, you can't help but think of like the banana Pompeii. I believe somebody made a banana hurricane Pompeii at one point. It was absolutely gorgeous. Things like that. It's just how insanely awesome and beautiful every version of this animal is, but just how the existence of one extra copy of Clown can really turn things on top of its head too. Just really great stuff. We always love seeing Genetic Genesis as absolute quality animals. Next up, again from Rice Reptiles, would be the one I promised you earlier, the one that I darn near almost got and honestly kind of regret not getting, and that would be this Black Pastel Red Stripe Yellow Belly Hurricane Het Clown. This is one copy of Clown and one copy of Spot Nose shy of being a Hurricane Pompeii, but just by itself, look at the craziness to the pattern. You can kind of see what all of that does. Nice looking oranges just coming through, that exotic type color that very much exists within the Pompeii, but then just kind of blowing up the contrast there of everything. Look at the dorsal pattern giving that traditional type color look to it, a very yellowy type look that has a very nice border in black, but then everything else below it is this very unique reddish rusty brown. You can start to see where that Pompeii is cooking up in this sort of combination, and then with the pattern itself is now blown out, very much granulated and just kind of faded throughout it, almost like it's been weathered away. And this goes to show you the contrast between clean and dirty, and how dirty doesn't have to be a dirty word. It is absolutely beautiful when you have these crazy contrasts right next to each other. It calls attention to every little detail of this animal and how it's able to weave together all of these contrasts without muddying them up. It puts them in different parts of the animal, so you have that cleaner dorsal stripe with this just absolutely blown out side of it. It just makes you wonder and think like how genetics even work together so incredibly to create something so beautiful. And at number 1 would be this Stranger Pompeii Het Desert Ghost. Holy cow, the only way this could be better is if it were a visual copy of Desert Ghost, which I can't wait to see that. But obviously everyone knows that Pompeii is one of the more sought after morphs that one can make. But adding Stranger on top of that has absolutely blown everything out of the water. You still have that kind of crazy back base to this animal with the shadowing of the pattern, but you very much have a crazier, more blown out pattern. Pompeii already has has some ghostly-like looks to it if you wanted to describe it in that sort of fashion. But this really just even blows out even more and just creates more of a granulation type look to it. And the quality of this animal is second to none. It literally looks like it's glowing, like it has hypo or something in it. That's another one I would love to see put into there, would be hypo. It just absolutely seems to be glowing. And if we can pause right here, you can see what I'm talking about and where that contrast looks even better. You have these nice sides, these little seemingly like exploding nuclear bombs just coming up with this shadowing kind of behind it, like flames of an explosion. But if you were to just look beyond that to the undertone of the snake, it's obviously very orange, but every single scale has a black shadow to it. Maybe along the head it doesn't, and that's about it. As soon as you reach the neck, look at that, you get this little horseshoe right here, and then boom, it just starts with every single scale having at least a little bit of this black flecking throughout. And as you get more and more down towards the tail, it just starts to take over more and more and more until, well, the tail is just suddenly black along the dorsal. Kind of reminds me of a red-tailed boa in a way, how it just changes more towards the tail and whatnot, but a really beautiful animal. Windy City Reptiles has always brought such great animals to the show. They also had a gorgeous hurricane hypo clown there that just was bright as can be, but such a beautiful animal. I had to absolutely pick it as my #1 for the show. What was your favorite snake on the list? Was there any at the show that you saw that you liked even better? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out our full walkthrough of the entire show that we posted just yesterday right here, or you can check out our little bit more abridged version where we have some interviews and upbeat music right here.